Dan Perry here with another Dan on Tech Python video. In the last video we introduced the if statement, and in this video we're going to just add some additional if statements. What we'll find out in a future video is this isn't going to be the easiest way of doing what we're going to do in this particular video. It will get us ready for it. The last program we had done, we asked for two integers. We printed them out. I did add a new line statement in a couple of places just to separate the output a little bit. And if we go ahead and run it just as a refresher, then we'll come in here and run, and it asks for an integer, 42, asks for another one, 55. It comes down and says after the if, it did not process what was inside the if because that statement was false. What if we also wanted to know if the numbers, if maybe one of the numbers was bigger than another number? Well, I could do a second if here. If A is greater than B, and a colon, PyCharm automatically indents 4 spaces for me, but if it didn't, if you're using something other than PyCharm to type your programs, just space in 4 times. Save myself some typing, copy this line. And I'm going to say the first number is greater. And I'll put a new line there. And what if I wanted to know if it wasn't? Copy these 2 lines. And I'm going to change that from A greater than B to A less than B. And I'm going to say the second. And if we walk through what we think is going to happen here, we'll ask the 2 numbers. We'll first check and see if they're the same. If they're the same, it will execute this print statement. Then it will check this one. If it did execute this statement, there is no way it can execute this second one, because if these 2 are equal, A can't be greater than B. So it skips down to the next if statement, and it can't execute it as well because we know if they were equal, A can't be less than B. So it's going to skip that one altogether and come down and print after the if. So let's run it with those parameters first. I'm going to enter equal numbers, 42 and 42. It output the 2 integers. It says the numbers are equal. Number, it says number, but should be numbers are equal. And then after the if. So exactly what we said. Came up and it told us that these numbers were equal. And it skipped these other 2 if statements because there's no way in this case that if this is true, either of those can be true. Well, let's run it again. And this time I'm going to make the first number larger than the second. So 42 and 10. And if we go back and look, it says the first number is greater. And then we've got our after the if line. So it came down. It checked this if. It was false, so it skipped that block of code. It checked this one, and that was true, so it went in and it printed the first number is greater. If this is true, there's no way this can be true, so that was false, and it skipped it and came down to the after the if statement. With the multiple if statements right now, only one of the 3 can be true. Well, let's run it one more time, and this time let's make the second number larger. So enter an integer, 10. enter another 42. And it says, hey, the second number is greater. So this time it went through. The first was false. The second was false. The third one was true, so it went into that block of commands. Then when it finished it, it exited out and says after the if. We've seen that in this case only one block of those if statements can be executed. We're going to change this a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And I'm going to make a couple of changes. What I'm going to do is here on the second if, I'm going to make that greater than or equal. And the third if, I'm going to make it less than or equal. And now let's run it. And I'm going to say 40 and 30. And when I do, it says the first number is greater. Well, the first line, the first if was false, so it skipped that. The second was true, so it said the first is greater, and the third is false. And if I did the second number greater, I would get that third if, but the first would not execute. Now let's execute it, though, with the numbers being equal. And let's see what happens. Both are 42. Says, hey, the numbers are equal. Although this is not really correct with the prompt I have, it says the first number is greater and the second number is greater. Well, it should be greater than or equal to. When it got to this second if, of course, it executed the first if, got to the second, and because of the equal, if they are equal, this was equal to this one, and it came in and did this. And the same thing here. So in this case, all three of those statements were executed. So depending on how your if statements are configured, we could execute multiple versions or multiple if statements in this sequence. Thank you for watching this Dan on Tech video. Please subscribe to this playlist so you don't miss future videos. Please check out and subscribe to our other Dan on Tech channel playlists.